Welcome to Java. Thank you again for joining me. It's January 28th, 2024. It is also Tuesday. We've got prior to the market open, we've got Starbucks reporting their earnings now. I'm looking to them not so much because they're a large company, but because they're looking at doing what we call a turnaround. They've had sales decline for some time. So this is kind of a harbinger of whether actual business still has a chance in this market. Now, I've also got some things to speak about with Ginkgo down here. There's quite a bit to cover, so let's get started. As always, with our favorite risk indicator, was very interesting day yesterday. So the MMRI at the moment is rising again. It's 305.5. Yesterday it was at a level 300. Much like the famous 300 warriors. And I think it was very apt. Yesterday, markets dropped significantly, and this was mostly on the new Chinese artificial intelligence kind of a competition going on now. Ended up having a lockup to where they shut everything off after cyber attack and have decided to only allow local citizens in China to access it. Now, we've got some very odd things going on in the markets this morning. With this, we had the stock market. Uh, this is saying Dow set for little change, but it was the NASDAQ to rise after the largest dive of the year. Now, in actuality, NVIDIA had the largest drop of a single stock ever. They broke a significant record here. And so I'm going to speak about this a little bit more. We've also got that Fed meeting starting today. We're not going to hear from them until tomorrow. That will affect markets. Now, as I'm doing this, it looks as if the NASDAQ futures are bouncing back, seeing NVIDIA gaining 5%. So we can look at these. At the moment, they are looking towards a bit of recovery. Volatility is down significantly. We've got gold still showing some strength, so there's still a bit of fear trade in here. However, we've got the Dow held well. I'll speak about that in a little bit as well. And the futures are also looking positive. So looking for recovery, at least for the open this morning. We'll see if it holds. Now, with cryptocurrencies, they also rebounded. Bitcoin briefly touched 98,000 and then it recovered from there. So above 102, at least well above 102,000 right now, and looking actually quite strong at this level. Now, what is the oddity here I was speaking of? We've got the fear greed meter is at 40. So heading back towards more greed, more retailers jumping in. But this is like that movie Inception, because we've got the market risk indicator showing an increase in risk. This is because the 10-year yield and relative strength of the dollar are both heading higher at the moment. Now, normally when these head higher, they act like a seesaw, if you will, or you also call it teeter-totter. One level goes up, the other side goes down with the markets. However, we're watching severe disparity as both these and the markets are both heading higher this morning. Now, this is not a really good sign. In fact, it's not a good sign at all. Not necessarily for the markets, but what it's showing is severe distortion. So let's go a little bit more into this. First, the calendar. We're getting Starbucks earnings prior to the market open. We're also getting, after close today, we've got a few pre-market, including Boeing and Raytheon. Now, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, these are the defense stocks, if you will. We've also got F5 aftermarket close today. And General Dynamics is also another defense stock prior to the market open tomorrow. Now, tomorrow is the Fed meetings. That will eclipse quite a bit. So today, home price index and consumer confidence, but tomorrow, everything will fall to the 2:30 press conference with Fed Chair Powell. Now, going back into DeepSeek yesterday was main reason everything kind of took a tank, and this was with NVIDIA dropping significantly because they could do artificial intelligence out of China as they do with everything. They do really good copies for an awful lot less. So with this, they've now got a spot on Perplexity. They're saying to support deep web research, now saying also they're hosted exclusively in the United States and EU data centers. Your data never leaves Western servers. Well, I highly doubt that because everything is intertied, and for the right price, everything is for sale. So let's talk about this just a bit more. We've got the Dow, as I was saying. The Dow remains strong with everything else tanking yesterday. Now, that's not that unusual. The Dow is 30 stocks, and they kind of have more of the stable sector, if you will. However, it's not a good omen for the markets. So, what this really is going on is that this rise that we're seeing now is no longer as markets used to be. They used to be when you looked at a chart for a stock, it was an indicator for that business of how much it was producing, how much money it was making or manufacturing, or how much it actually was providing either in a service or a good as far as corporation and the profits for that company. This is no longer the case, has nothing to do with it. There is no longer a market. Now, when you look at a market chart, it is simply a chart of inflation. There's very little left to do with business. And how can I say this? Well, looking forward, we're going to have large movers at the markets. It has nothing to do with business, all about rate cuts and whether they're going to happen. Now, that being said, the current proposition for rate cuts right here is that the probability is near nil that they will do a rate cut, at least for this meeting. Now, going forward, they probably will do rate cuts. So with this, their target rate are expected to stay the same. Now, as I was saying yesterday, we've got Fed Chair Powell and the current president both working towards this inflation in management of it. Now, which direction they're managing it is different whether you ask them in public or whether you ask them with the books behind the scenes. And this is getting into what is going on with the currency, the flows, United States dollars, all of these tariff wars are all tied in, including this massive drop that we saw yesterday on Nvidia that hit the broader market. Now, allow me to explain a bit more. Now, in the real economy, as I like to say, because they're very distinctly different, we've got working Americans turning to food banks as Fed inflation battle drags on. Now, United States food banks facing a wave of need driven by the cost of living crunch. Now, what I want to point out is these are working Americans. These are not Americans that are out of jobs. Even though they're working, they cannot afford to put food on the table. Now, it's not any better over in the UK. This is global. We've got UK food prices rising the most in 9 months ahead of the Bank of England meeting. So, with all of this talk about a strong economy, and just last month, this was the story. Job growth skyrocketed in December, boosting one of the strongest labor markets in the United States. Now, here we are now, Americans struggling to find new jobs as the market changes. So, major shift either in reality or just in their narrative. Either way, it amounts to the same, that there's a lot of struggles that are going on. This is by design. Don't make a mistake about this. Let's go into this a little bit further. Now, the first one I've got here because the whole Stargate project is about this, but they're not the first ones. And I was saying this about the artificial intelligence before. The whole reason that the tariffs were dropped on China is because there is an imbalance between these. And the whole reason that they threw out safety for AI a while back was because they knew about this happening. So now they know about this again. Notice this is not American, it is Russian. I have to be very careful what I say here, but they're putting this out by the end of the year. The time frame that they are looking at is having it approved by August and putting it out by September. So I want to shift to something a little bit appearing different, but really not. So we've got this going on. A new issue with birds right now. They're saying it's not inevitable, but there is this outbreak passing worrisome milestones, including cattle that have been reinfected. Now, I'm going to say something about this quickly. I know this is going on long. However, if the cattle are being reinfected, that means that they were at some point in time, they got over it, and now they're getting it again. What does that say? If anyone that's been in the field at all, or even uh, anyone that can think about this logically, means they got over it. It's not terribly deadly. It is simply another bug, if you will, going around, and they are getting over it. So, really, in the long scheme, not something to be majorly fearful of. Now, I want to bring up something else. This is a company called Ginkgo Bioworks, and ironically, their ticker symbol is DNA. Now, they're a company that worked with federal agencies during this last pandemic, and they already work with a partner that assesses roughly half of the nation's commercial milk supply for looking at some of these things as well as other substances. Now, why milk? And I want to start questioning this, if you will. I'll probably start putting more out if I have the time into Substack to kind of go into this a little bit more. But the information is out there. So, why don't we just add assays into this infrastructure that we already have, said a manager at the company's biosecurity division. Let's go into this a little bit more. They've got out, this is MAP, Cross Species United States Tracker. Now, this is the key down here, and look at what they're tracking: dairy farms, poultry farms, humans, wild birds, and wildlife. They've got, now, this is kind of funny, perhaps, with artificial intelligence, but notice first diagram they have up here. Secondly, they've got this animal for dairy farms, a little bit off there. We've got poultry farms, human, wild birds, and then wildlife. So they're looking into the spread. There is going to be some significant changes with this. So just keep this in mind. So with this, I'd like to talk about a couple of other things because this all ties in. Shifting to the money, or I should say currency supply, is really what it's all about. So this is all about control, and it all ties in together. Now, bear with me if you will. I know this is severe tin hat, particularly if you are new here, but if you stick with me, it might cause you a little bit of pause for thought. Okay, cryptocurrency, we've got Ripple obtaining money transmitter licenses in both New York and Texas. So they're growing by states, getting adoption so that they are becoming the currency of cryptocurrencies. Now, I've already spoken about this before. It's been some time, so if you missed that or didn't catch it, this is going to be the one to enslave. It was the original design. It is older than Bitcoin, and there is a story behind that as well. Now, shifting over to this one, artificial intelligence. Singularity Finance, or SFI for short, partnering with Particle Network. Now, these are crypto tokens that are going on with the artificial intelligence, real world assets, tokenizing these. And I know this is probably all overwhelming. I'm going to leave you with a couple of things here. First, buy this stuff, buy Bitcoin. Staying away from the other stuff. This will enslave us one day. And I've got this in the center for a reason. What to expect after South Korean president's indictment on rebellion charges. Now, this was also a well-timed event, and there's much, much more to this than meets the eye. I'm just going to leave it with this. This was the test country for the control and programmability for cryptocurrencies. So with this, I wish you all a green trading day if you're going to be trading. Wonderful day in general. We'll be talking about this a little bit more probably in Discord tomorrow. Leave what you think in the comments. And until I see you again, my friends, stay free.